All right, we're back for episode 83 of Digital Divination. Jason, how's the heat treating you?
Oh, I don't like it. I mean, it's been okay, like, if you most of the morning and the sort of early
Yeah.
afternoon, and if you stay in the shade, not in the direct sunlight, it's fine. I actually went for a walk at noon today because
Wow.
it's generally hotter
Yeah, yeah.
like, around 4 or 5 o'clock when I usually go for a walk, and it was still a little warm. So, it's apparently, like, one of the hottest May in recorded history for Seattle.
Yeah, I had a doctor's appointment. I drove back and it said 81 or something driving in.
Oh, man, yeah.
So
What
I
time was that?
3 to 4.
Yeah, that's like the man, it's gonna get hot tomorrow, so hotter maybe.
Yes. But it's we don't get too much really, really hot weather, so
Until
yeah.
until we have a heat dome,
Until we do.
which was a miserable weekend, honestly.
Well, normally I'd go up to my place in Camino, but the water's
Yeah.
turned off because they're working on the bathroom up there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to be done this week, and I think it's
Mm.
gonna be at least another week. I'm gonna drive up tomorrow morning first thing just to check on the progress, but I suspect it's gonna be a couple more weeks. These contractors,
Mm.
they always, like, underestimate their time by, like, 100%, you know? So, I
Mhm.
need to
Yeah.
double it to get the
Get the
accurate.
idea. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you've seen Money Pit, right? The Money Pit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. 2 weeks. My stepdad, who used to work in construction, kind of, like, took that as part of his, mantra. He would always be like, "How long it take to get this done? 2 weeks." No matter what it was, he would always just say
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
The whole
no.
deck, the bathroom, a simple, like, one-day job, he would always say 2 weeks. Not to, like, any, like, official capacity, but just as a joking kind of way.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I was thinking that we should talk about mechs, and there's two reasons for
Mhm.
that. One is that I'm playing in a game GM'd by the venture captain here in Seattle, Jocelyn Hamilton, and she said, "Be prepared to do mech combat
Mhm.
uh, tomorrow, or no, Sunday."
Oh,
So we're recording on
okay.
Saturday. So I need to
Right,
get it
right.
figured out. And then, surprise, surprise, there are mechs in our to Defy the Dragon game, and,
Yeah.
I'll have to figure out how to run mech combat
But aren't
for
you
our
playing in Defy the Dragon? Is that the game that you're
yeah,
playing
I'm playing in
tomorrow?
it now, but I
Okay.
haven't read past
No,
where
no,
I've
no, yeah, yeah.
played. So,
Yeah,
it's kinda,
it's
um
fair.
and I'm like, we're 2 weeks ahead in the game I'm playing than
Mm,
the game I'm GMing with you and Stephanie.
right. Is that 1 session 2 weeks ahead or 2 sessions 2 weeks ahead?
2 sessions,
Okay.
2 separate sessions. I think
Yeah.
that's where we're at. I'm just kinda guesstimating how much we get done when we're playing. I think it'll be 2 more sessions at least before we
Mhm.
get to where we're at. So,
Okay.
by then I should be a mech expert.
A mexpert.
A mechspert, yes, a
A
mechspert.
mexpert, yeah.
So, who designed the mech rules?
That's a good question. If I recall correctly, I had very little to do with the Tech Revolution book, which is fine. And I believe it was in part. I know John Compton did a lot of work on it, and I want to say like Amanda Hammond had some
Oh,
part in it as well.
really? Well, maybe I better look at the beginning,
Yes,
see what it
I
says in here.
think. Yeah, well, she's listed as an author.
Yeah.
Compton was the development lead on the whole book, so obviously he
Yeah,
had a lot
yeah,
to do
so
with it. And
Compton
then,
would have been the
Joe Piscini took his design pass on it to make sure it was
right,
all
right.
mechanically sound and all that. So it was the normal amount of hands, I would say, for something like this, for a
Right.
sort of new subsystem for a game that had been out for a few years, right?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I hadn't really taken a hard look at it, when Tech Revolution came out, Ron and I talked about mechs, kinda looked at
Hmm.
them, building mechs mostly is what
Right.
we were looking at, but now I'm more concerned right now on how to play
Right.
mechs and how to GM mech.
Okay.
And, so that's kind of what I was thinking about.
I'm gonna have to learn this a little bit too, in terms of playing it. If we're playing this, going through the same adventure. From what I like understand, and again, I haven't really taken a look too much at this when the book came out. I was there as part of the sort of the all the concepting of what the individual factions mechs would look like, and that was super cool and fun.
Yeah, I like that.
But the nitty gritty mechanics, I am sort of completely in the dark about, to be perfectly
Mhm,
honest.
mhm.
If I recall correctly, the intent was to sort of be like, oh, you can have mechs and people not in mechs in the same scale of combat. So it couldn't be like Starship Combat where you have a starship and that's it, right? Like that's the Starship scale of things, and there's no other scale. Mech scale is sort of a not even an in between. It's just kind of like a small step up from PC combat, PC scale combat, really.
Mhm, mhm.
So you could have those, uh, kaiju's there and stomping around, have a mech punch kaiju, but also have a person on the sidelines shooting a sniper rifle at the kaiju as well. Let's say, of course, the way that I think things could have come through is that when you're in a mech, you're more powerful than you are when you're just a person. So
Right.
you get to go up a little in scale in CR and all that.
Kinda makes sense. I was
Yeah,
kinda, looking at that, looking at playing mechs or mech combat and scale.
mech combat.
So,
Yeah.
page 112 of Tech Revolution kinda, brings that in. Um, one of the things they talk about is that mechs are, as you mentioned, mechs are designed to fit on a 5 by 5 map, just be bigger,
Hmm.
right, and
They're just big. Yeah.
do things. Though, um, they recommend for mech encounters, they be 10 by 10 map,
Right.
in part because a lot of these mechs are, when you look at their areas,
I mean, they're always at least size large. They may even be
yes,
start at size huge.
right, right,
Can't
right,
remember.
and their speed is really fast, that's the other thing. So, looking
Sure.
at,
Yeah.
some of the mechs in Tech Revolution, speed 80, speed 100, um, for doing things.
Big
Apparently they're all
legs can
divisible
do
by
big
10.
strides.
What's that?
Oh, that's good. I said big legs got big strides.
Right, right, and so if you're doing a lot of movement, uh, I guess you're typically not gonna go just 5 foot if you're a mech, at least 10. Having 10-foot
Sure. Yeah.
squares kind of sense, but if that I would say that's only, like, if you're only going against similar sized creatures. Otherwise,
Yeah.
if you have players, you wanna still have the 5 foot.
I mean, you could still have a 10 foot by 10 foot and have people in there, individual, as long
Right.
as you're going, oh, every square you move is 10 feet. So,
Mhm.
um, I think that could work if it, the focus should though then be on the mechs, right? This is like
Right.
you've got like two, three, four mechs in the combat, and you only got like one or two people sized things happening, and
Mhm.
then you could even do a situation where you've got mechs fighting mechs while the people are fighting, you know, other pilots or something like that who are out of their mechs,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
and
that's
not
true.
necessarily cross pollinate, but every once in a while someone will be like, "Well, I don't have anyone else shoot. I'm gonna take a shot at the big mech," and you can do that.
Yeah, it's again, just kinda skimming through the rules, one of the things I found to be interesting is it's a full round action to enter or exit a mech. And if you enter, you have to be adjacent. If you exit, then you end up
Mhm.
adjacent to, which I think is kinda nice, simplifies things. You don't have to open a door, move in, climb in, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's track each individual part of getting
Right,
in the mech. Yeah, yeah,
right,
no,
right.
yeah. That is just you get in the mech. That's you're done.
But, one of the things I was thinking of is that, like a mechanic there's a remote control ability.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
I wonder, well, that probably doesn't work on something like, um, ooh, now I gotta be
I don't
careful.
know.
Um, anyway, yeah, so
Sure.
I don't think it says, I think it's just for controlling stuff, not necessarily like you can control a pilot starship remote,
Right. Yeah.
and a mech's kind of
The
more along that's,
Mechs aren't, like, exactly vehicles, so they don't
Right.
fall under that purview of, like, remote con or starships, right?
Mhm.
And, right here on the bottom of page 112, it says that mechs aren't objects.
Yes.
They're individual things, so you don't necessarily can't apply that sort of, like, "I'm gonna smash this," like, you've got, like, a penetrating
Right.
laser
Right.
Gatling or something like that. You don't necessarily take into account, anything that would affect an object doesn't necessarily bust up a mech better. It's
Right.
just normal. It has the normal bag of hit points or whatever it has.
Right. Yeah, they have, oftentimes they have, like, shield points and then hit points, SP.
Yeah.
Some of them do have hardness. I'm looking at some of the sample mechs, they have a hardness as well. They
Hmm.
potentially are then.
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
Um, so other interesting things is that the mechs come with a move action and a reaction, and then for every operator, you have the mech can take an action with that.
Mhm. Sure. I think that's because there's most likely multiple firing
Right,
points and
right,
things. It's so that if you've got a mech that's full of people, they all have something to do.
right, right,
Right,
right, right,
right. That's the intent. It was always a question for me that's sort of like related to this, like Power Ranger. When I was working on the Power Rangers game, and when they
right.
people form as Zords, you're in your Zords, and you're doing your own vehicle stuff and shooting and stuff like. That. Then you form the Megazord, and you become one thing. It was very kind of unclear to me, like who did what. Like, does the group just decide how the Zord acts? Because in Power Rangers, the arm is not acting differently from this arm, and the leg
Right,
is not kicking separately. It was all just a fluid motion, because it was just one guy in one costume. So that's good. But the fact that as a mech, the mechs aren't necessarily composed of different things sort of combined in together. They are meant to build to be like, you can shoot your gun, shoot this other gun. Maybe there's a turret or something. Uh, you
ooh, a
know,
turret
uh,
on the mech. Yeah, that's kinda
yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
think yeah, something like that. But yeah, it's just sort of like shoot. Well, I mean, like like uh, personal scale combat. Mech combat doesn't worry about facing and stuff like that.
right,
Unlike Starship Combat, which does
right,
worry about facing. You
right,
can have a turret, doesn't matter. Shoot anywhere, go for it.
yeah. Yeah, and, so it seems, I'm slowly wrapping my head around it, and that kinda in that
Yeah.
regard, so here's actions, and then the things you can do with those actions are dependent on this new resource pool they have, which is
Yeah.
power points,
Right.
and, so the mech every round gets a certain number of power points that they could do, they have available, and then they regenerate some
hmm
also during a round. So it's like the power core
Yeah.
only can power
Right.
so many things at once,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And then after you've done that, they kind of um, use up that pool, and then it has to regenerate before you do it again. Is that right?
It seems that way. Yeah, I mean, it seems that way. Yeah, I think there's sort of like when you think about mech combat, a lot of people think about like Mech Warrior
Right,
and BattleTech and stuff like that. And a lot of ways that was sort of this sort of thing was kind of simulated with something called like heat. Your mech would heat up,
right,
right? When you're doing
right.
things like I'm going to activate this thing, and no, that does heat, and you can only do so much before your mech caught fire or exploded or whatever it did in those games. I'm
Overheats,
not
yeah,
really 100% sure. Overheats. So this is, I think, sort of intended to kind of like represent that a little bit without the thing about it malfunctioning, right? Just sort of you can only do so much, and the mech is like, oh no, we're not going to do anymore. I'm not going to overheat. Although you can have system failures in this, it looks like, but that's when you take too much damage.
right.
Yeah.
That reminds me. Have you seen the movie Real Steel? Hugh
Oh
Jackman.
no, but I know no, but I know what you're talking about.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. So there's a part in there where um, it's a giant robot, but it's oversized.
Yeah.
So anyway, moving too fast, doing too many things causes it.
Sure. Yeah. That's a classic trope for big robots that are being controlled by other people. You can have a big robot that, like the Iron Giant, is his own guy. He doesn't overheat. I don't think. I don't know. Now I don't remember. I'm saying things. I'm making these analogies for no reason.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Iron Giant for a long time,
Yeah.
except in Ready Player One, where the Iron Giant comes back.
Ju a way to how to misconstrue the meaning of a movie. Lord.
Yes.
But, like, honestly, though, that's, like, exactly what the internet would do. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it didn't actually, surprise me, that that sort of thing happened, because the internet is always sort of like, "Oh, no, what about who would win in a fight? Blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Well, you know,
yeah, yeah,
the Iron Giant wouldn't have that's the whole point of the Iron Giant, is that he doesn't want to do the fighting."
right. So, anyway, so and it's kinda neat with these points, so I think actually they build up over time. You don't get a pool, you build up, you have a maximum you can get, and then each
Okay.
round you get a certain number or each turn, I guess, you get a certain number, and then you can expend these on certain things, like PowerPoints, and they have an aim, you can that's 1
Mhm.
PowerPoint, devastating hit with 3 PowerPoints, and that's after you've hit a creature with an
Done
attack,
everything, yeah.
but before
Yeah.
you deal damage, it's like kinda like a supercharged thing to do more
Mhm.
damage, right? You use some of the PowerPoints.
Yeah.
Maneuvering's a PowerPoint, replenish, um, is basically upping your shields again,
Mhm.
and then making a savings throw is a PowerPoint.
Well, yeah, before you to make it better. What's good I think what's kind of neat about this is that it, like, you don't have to spend these PowerPoints to move and do regular
Right,
attacks.
basic
So
stuff
you
you don't,
don't
yeah,
the basic stuff is just there, and so you can do that, you can do walk around, you can, do normal combat stuff. So you're
right,
not always worried about spending your points in such a way that might screw you over, that you don't, "Oh, I can't make an attack this round." No, this is, for the, above and beyond
right.
attacks and other ways to sort of help yourself out.
Yeah, and then and also it's a way to add some cool flavor to it, right? So
Sure,
rather
yeah.
than, "Oh, I'm firing my big mega cannon or swinging my big mega sword," now here's a buff that I only can do
Right,
certain amount of time.
right.
And a couple other neat ones that can hurl stuff, called shots and things.
You might wanna shoot a mech in a certain place, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then it seems like there's a similar to the Starship Combat, they have like a, when you get hit,
Mhm.
or I guess when something gets critically hit, that's what I that there's a D20. When there's a
Yeah.
system failure, it's a D20. When a mech takes damage, various components can malfunction. Whenever a mech is reduced to 2/3 of its remaining hit points, and again, we're reduced to 1/3, so kind of like the critical threshold
Yeah, like the critical
starships, right?
thresholds, yeah.
Experiences a system failure, roll a D20 on. Yeah, and there's basic groupings. They start
Yeah,
malfunctioning, which similar to Starship, you take like a
yeah.
-2 initial.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's sort of like classic mech combat. This gets
Yeah.
kind of, crunchy in systems and limbs and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
It is interesting to me that this entire description of mech combat is only 4 pages long.
yeah, I know.
I think that's pretty good. It's a good way. I mean, there are pages and pages about, like, how to make a mech and all the
Right.
sort of little things here and there. But, like, in terms of, like, character creation versus, the combat chapter, it feels like that's the same sort of percentage between the two, right?
Well, and I think in part it's really trying to mirror what the player characters can do, and
Mhm.
some of it scale it up maybe in a way similar to players may have seen it with Starship. Maybe not a lot of explanation needs to be made,
Yeah, it's
and
true.
it's
Yeah,
a relatively simple system. Maybe a more complex system will come out over time. Maybe it doesn't have to
yeah.
be.
I
No?
don't know if it necessarily. Yeah, I don't know if it necessarily needs to be, because if you want to keep it in such a way that you know what combat is, and it's
Right.
mech combat is not that much different than player versus player player versus enemy combat, because you're moving, you're attacking, maybe you're using your skills, and maybe you're using some special abilities. Well, in a nutshell, that's it.
The thing that I find interesting is the mixing of players and mechs. So like I'm looking at this big Aslanti mech
Yeah, the
here,
big
right?
Azanti guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the big sword. And He's the Imperator Pinion?
Mhm.
I don't know how you say that. So he's got 122 hit points, 31 shield points at hardness 7, and this is a tier 14. And I'm I'm just thinking that you had a 14th level player character, you could almost one shot that. Is it hit points the
I don't
same?
what?
Is the hit is the damage?
How? Can you do
Well, in one round, you could do it in a round.
158 hit points?
You could do that in a round, 3 shots. So if you had Soldier's Onslaught at level
Okay.
14, you're averaging 55 to 60 points a shot. If you hit 3 shots, you could do it.
Hmm.
Anyway, so what I'm trying to figure out here is that is that the same hip? So like Starship has hull points.
Right.
This has HP. Is that still is that the same? That's what I need to figure out.
I feel like it is.
Hit points
You
and
look at the
shield
sort of
points. Call them hit points.
yeah.
So
Doing some looking.
I guess what I'm going to say is at higher levels. So let me see what I can. So that's a level 14. Let me see if
Sure.
we have a. There's a level 16 Valkyr, one of the Malkin mechs, that are on the
Right.
planet of Kaiju. So that's 190 hit points, hardness 10, 35 shield points. That's quite a bit. That's you know that's probably similar to hit points and stamina points a soldier would have, and a Vanguard has even more at that level.
Yeah, I gotta wonder though that 36 EAC, 38 KAC, how that stacks up to a CR16 creature, and if these armor classes are maybe a little bit higher than they would be for creatures to make them so that you can't just shoot them 3 times pretty easily.
Yeah, yeah. I think level 14. So I just played my Vanguard in the Society play at level 13 to 14. My
Hmm.
EAC is 36 KAC.
Okay. Okay.
So
Well, I mean that, but there's also there's how much like what your is and what a creature's is, right?
right, right.
Because you're that being that high is pretty good, but you're still gonna get hit because alien, creatures have such high
Oh,
two hit
sure.
bonuses. Yeah.
So my concern is this. If
Hmm.
there's a big massive kaiju or a mech out there, and you have a player character of equivalent level, I just don't think that player character should be able to go toe to toe with it.
But also, you have creatures at that level, just sort of like
Yeah.
big things. And these are
Yeah.
just big creatures, right? There's nothing
Yeah.
like
I see what you're
they're
saying.
bigger than normal, but like you
Yeah.
can fight. Let's go ahead and look at a level. What's a big guy?
Uh,
Um,
Volscar Sovereign. I
mm,
think it's a
the Endbringer
CR60.
Devil. The
Oh, yeah.
Endbringer Devil is a CR19, right? He's
Okay.
colossal, and he's
Yeah.
kind of looks like a spaceship, half a
Yeah.
spaceship. And granted, he does have 415 hit points, but that's still he's a big guy and you can shoot him and you can take four people of CR level 19 and fight him and have a normal fight,
Right. Right. Okay.
right?
Fair
It's
enough.
not much different than fight. It's sort of yeah. I mean, that's the give and take from like what do you expect out of a mech combat? It was always the biggest question when we were sort of
Right. Oh, yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
getting into this mechs. Like, what do people want out of it and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Not, I don't mean to be poking holes at this. I've never played with a mech and a character at that level. Even in society play, they have some colossi, but
Hmm.
you don't ever fight them directly. You go inside them and do something.
Oh, sure, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and I always figured that was kind of the same thing. Is it's mech should be plot wise just so much more powerful than an individual. So
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the give and take, is that,
Yeah.
in a way that they are, if you're in a tier. Well, I mean, here's the thing. I think, like, the bit is that, like, me they the game wants to get a mechs to fight the mechs.
Yes.
And when you're in a mech, you are, whatever it is, 3 or so levels higher considered than
Right.
when you are normally. So if you and then you go up against a tier, something that's probably even a little bit higher than that for whatever tier,
Right.
just for a challenge in combat, right? So then
Right.
you're
Right.
thinking about
Right.
the people who are walking around are going to be way lower than the CR of
Right.
the equivalent tier, right? So you've got, like, for
That
this,
makes
like,
sense.
16, you're probably fighting with, PCs are probably like 12, 11th level.
Yes.
They're not going to be able to
Yes.
do as much damage against the tier 16 mech.
Right.
Um,
That makes sense.
but yeah, I think that's sort of the, again,
Yeah.
the push and pull, the give and take. You can do a thing. Think about a game like Starfinder and sort of 3.5 and all that. Any kind of role playing game where there's tactical combat, you can have a fight against a big thing and just have it be a big bunch of hit points that you're shooting at, or you can have a fight against a big thing that is a set piece encounter, right? Where you climb over here and maybe you have a fight over here in its arm and you chop a little bit of its arm off, and that's a
Right.
completely different creature, right?
Right.
Like, there's different ways to do it, and they both work mechanically, this, like, not the same way,
Yeah.
but they work mechanically within the system. So it becomes a question of how
Right.
you want
Yeah.
things to look, right? And what kind of an experience you want to have. But you can't it's going to be difficult to do that all the time.
Right.
Sometimes you just need to throw a big guy that just, here's a big guy, blah, and fight him, and not have to worry about the intricacies of fighting inside a monster and outside of a
Right.
monster and all that stuff.
Right. And it's not that much different than fighting a dragon, right? I mean, it's a big, massive creature. It's a stack
Yeah,
of hit points, can do massive amounts of damage. But if you're high enough level, you can go toe to toe
you
with a
can go toe to
dragon.
toe. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
And that's the experience. You want to, like, oh, we have to fight a dragon. The experience of fighting a dragon should be an experience where maybe some other stuff is going on, and it becomes a memorable encounter, and not just a
right.
fight against a big bruiser, right? That is just sort of, you go toe to toe for 3 rounds and it's over. So it all becomes down to taking the tools given in a game and crafting something
Right.
interesting. And like, every jam's not going to be able to do that every single time. You're not going to be able to do that with every encounter in a pre-written adventure, for instance. Or even in a pre-written adventure, say, like, you got to fight a dragon. The dragon has these tactics. You can't. I can't take up that much room on the page because I have to do like 18 other encounters
Yes.
in this 13 pages. So it's just that, and then it's up to the GM to kind of, like, make that interesting or do something tactically. Because I think I'm personally, tactically speaking, a bad GM. Like, I'm bad at doing the most tactically sound thing in a
Mhm.
combat, when because I'm not necessarily, because I've maybe got multiple creatures and I've got to think about that. And there's always, like, I flank. Hey, that's about the limit of it.
Yeah.
But I always just sort of, like, fight and then run away, and, like, get to a point like, oh, he fights to the death or doesn't fight to the death. He's got like 10 hit points left. He'll probably run away. So
Mhm.
I always, like, worry that I when I have too many combats in a a campaign or a session or whatever, that they can get kind of samey. But every once in a while, I try to spice it up. But but that's more with, like, I feel like I'm better with, like, sort of plot and description and stuff like that.
Right.
So, everyone's got their advantages and disadvantages. That's not the word I'm thinking. The strengths and weaknesses. That's the word.
Right. Yeah. And I can see, bringing mechs in that the GM will have a lot of leeway for things. In fact, I've read in certain games where they talk about very intentionally, make you have the flexibility to buff up these encounters, these creatures, that make it more of a challenge, make it scary, make it more meaningful for the
Hmm.
players, rather than just go with kind of as written. Because I think
Right. Yeah.
oftentimes when you look at like the creature building rules and things, the mech building rules, they're designed for like an average group put together and
Hmm.
not necessarily a
Yeah.
bunch of min-max, well-oiled machine that complements
Yep.
each other and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
it's
That's This is what you got to take into account, right? Like,
yeah,
and when you're making a game, for publication, for, like, general consumption, you kind of have to land in that middle space, so that
right,
when people who are just trying things out. You know, I don't play a whole lot of society play, so I don't know like how much people come in there and get they're organized. 'Cause the people, you know, four or five other people who don't play normally together, right? Come in and are they able to synergize their strategies that quickly, or are they just sort of like I'm gonna do my thing and you do your thing, right? You
Yeah.
know, and then it works out because it's built to be like more geared towards people just kind of like of average tactical genius, I guess.
Yeah, it really depends on that because
Yeah.
if you're with your local group, like my local group, all of us have multiple characters. Everyone say, "Who do you wanna bring?" And then you bring something complementary to that, right?
Hmm.
When you do a convention, oftentimes those are more experienced players, and
Hmm.
sometimes, like, they'll sign up together at tables, but they also have
Yeah.
multiple characters as well. Um, I what I personally find is that most society scenarios are underpowered for most
Hmm.
groups that go into 'em, and you have to adjust with tactics to make it more
Yeah.
challenging. Um,
Yeah.
and the problem with society is you're supposed to, run as written, right? You're
Mm.
not supposed
Sure. Yeah.
you're not given the same flexibilities if you're running an adventure path
Right.
or what, modules. But getting back to mechs and mech combat, now I'm not gonna go over building them. They have lots and lots of pages of
It's a lot
um,
there. Yeah.
but I will say that mechs have lots of really cool things they can do in terms of, like,
Hmm.
built-in stuff, weapons,
Yeah.
components, and systems that you could that's I think that'll be a lot of fun, even if you're using standard mech.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, one, I'm hoping that with whatever mechs come through in to defy the dragon, have cool things in them, and that we can do cool things with them.
Oh,
That's
I
all.
will okay, spoiler,
Uh oh.
yes, and there's nothing in these books. They're new.
I knew that. I knew there were going to be
Oh,
new
yeah, because
stuff
yeah.
happening, but yeah, I just, you know, I don't know anything else.
Yes. So it's kinda I think that'll make it kinda fun.
Yeah.
My group, we kind of can suss out what the newness is based on what we
Mm.
found so far, and I suspect yours will as well.
Yes. I think I well now that I like think about it, from what I remember a little bit, and I want from what I can remember, from what we've sort of what's been presented to us in the adventure so far, I have an idea
Right.
of some general idea, not necessarily specifics, but just sort of what they
Yeah.
what newness might be there.
Now for me, because even though I'm GMing it, I'm only trying to read as far as, just trying to stay behind where I've played it so that I
Hmm.
get surprised. And, like, I just started reading up, for this next thing, our next session up to where we've played, and I think, "Oh, wow, now that makes more sense," what happened and
Right.
things, and, "Oh, this is really cool," and this it's, specifically to Defy the Dragon, it's kind of a neat story within a story. I think
Oh, okay.
the writing is really good in terms of the
Yeah, great.
storyline and plot. Yeah, who wrote
Cool.
that?
I can't wait.
That
It's
Kendra?
Kendra Lee Speedling.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I like that quite a bit.
Hmm.
Kinda neat.
Hmm.
I thought it was gonna be a lot like, one of the books in Dawn of Flame where you meet some folks fighting against some folks and things
Oh,
like
okay.
that,
Yeah.
and, it's nice how it's not, it's different, so
Okay. Good. Good. Good.
yeah,
Good.
yeah, I'll
Good.
just
Good.
I'm trying to be vague in case 'cause for
Yes.
people that
Be vague
wanna
and
play this.
spoiler free. For people, for me who is also wants to play it
Yeah,
and
yeah,
will be
yeah,
playing it.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, you've come up to part of the sameness talking about,
Right. Yeah.
so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I
you
mean
knew
it's I get rebels. So there's a
yeah.
rebellion of some kind. They're defying the dragon, right? Like, oh,
Yes,
yeah, I get it.
those
And I
that
want to be
defy
there
the
to be like,
dragon.
I'm ready to defy this dragon.
Yes. So that'll be fun. Well, anyways, I look forward to it. I feel a lot
Mhm.
more comfortable now having read through
Good,
these
good.
and, seeing what the combat's gonna be like because I'm running an envoy, and,
Mm.
so you don't have the same like, you don't have starship type of roles, right? You do get a pilot, right? You can
Sure.
pilot.
Yeah. Then that's
Yeah,
kind of hoping what my character in your game is going to be, at least
yeah,
do some mech piloting, because I maxed out my piloting.
yes. I will say yes, that I feel nearly 100% confident that you will do some piloting.
Yeah, get me
So,
in those joysticks or
yeah,
whatever, what kind of a mech interface I'm gonna get to put it on my head, or just sort
yeah,
of do the Pacific Rim thing where I'm just sort of moving my arms and legs
yeah.
like the mech.
Yeah, now when you have 2 pilots, do they have to sync drift like that? I don't know.
I guess they do. I don't know.
Yeah. I actually
Most of
like
these,
that mechanism there, how you
yeah, yeah.
integrate your left and your right, you have to go into sync, otherwise, parts you're controlling doesn't sync up with the parts they're
Doesn't you
controlling.
and you're gonna fall over. There was one we were sort of talking about, like, the different types of mechs,
Yeah.
because we did makes these, Skyfire Legion mechs, and the Skyfire Legion is
Ooh,
often, talk about, like, there's a dragon and a non-dragon, and they're bonded together, right? Like, that was the sort of
yes.
the sort of shtick of the Skyfire Legion.
Right,
So I
right,
think
right.
at one
Oh,
point we were trying to talk about, like, these should have 2 pilots
oh,
somehow.
yeah,
I don't know if they do or
or
not, but,
more.
like,
The
they
Skyfire Worm, tier 12, can have 2 to 6 operators,
nice.
and then there's a tier 2, Skyfire Quickwing can have 1 to 2.
Yeah, so we were sort of, like, trying to get, like,
Yeah,
whatever mechanics exist to try to get in a little bit of the for the different factions, get some of that in there. I also like this giant bonsai tree mech for the
yeah, I
Xenoward.
just saw that,
Just
the
a tree.
Xenowarden one.
It's just a tree in a pot
Yeah, it's
with
a
some
tree in a
some
pot.
legs. Yeah.
Tier 16, tree in a pot. Man. Oh, no, I think the
Yeah.
Vesk one's really wild, though, kinda bulbous
Yeah, the best one's pretty cool looking. We had, like, if you're
Vesk one.
nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you've been paying attention to the Paizo blog, over the couple weeks, it's talking about the Pathfinder remaster and having Kent
Yeah.
Hamilton be the sort of showing his concept art for those dragons. Kent Hamilton did a ton of concept art for us for this book for the mechs,
Oh,
at any rate, for Tech Revolution. And so he's
nice.
like, when we got Ken a while ago, and every time we get to use him for concept art, it's so good. Like, I had him concept art the Civ for Arc of Devastation Arc a while back, and I was like,
Wow.
"Oh, this thing looks so cool!" And every time he shows us something, I think, like, I don't know if these sort of there's these spreads in Tech Revolution which kind of, like, point things out and give different
Right.
versions of heads of what mechs look like. I think some of this might be, like, part of his concept art taken and put onto the page, colored obviously, and put on the page. So, um,
It's too bad that they don't
always cool.
list the specific artist.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's the same with authors, right? They don't say
Yeah, we don't say who
necessarily.
wrote exactly what,
Yeah.
and we don't say who drew exactly what. And though we know that, right? That's information that exists for when we put a specific piece of art out of the book and put it on the blog. Say we credit the artist
Oh, yeah.
directly.
Yeah, yeah.
We just don't do it in the book. It'd be cool if there was enough time, and if we could just, like, throw an extra page count or two maybe in there, right, for a book, just list, like, here's the pages and who drew what on what page, and
Yeah.
maybe even kind of we do go into specifics when it's, like, clearly, like, parts of an AP volume, right?
Right.
Who wrote the adventure, and you know who wrote this, but you might not know who
Toolbox
wrote
or
each individual
whatever.
monster. Yeah. So it's give and take, but everyone kind of, like, uh, I mean, I don't know if they're okay with it or not, but they sort of a known factor. You can be like, oh, and we don't, Paizo doesn't. It doesn't matter if you say, oh, later on when the book's out, and say, oh yeah, I wrote that part. You can tell people. It's not
Right.
like we're trying to hide that information
Right.
from people. It's just, how do you do it? Where do you put it? And is it worth the space on the page, right?
This
And are
is so
people, like, other people going to care?
I wanna say something here.
Okay, go for it.
This is really interesting. Your tone about Paizo and we doing this and stuff like that has changed a lot now
Yeah,
since you've come. I mean, yeah, you're back
yeah.
in that mode. It's very
I'm
clear
back in that
now.
mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's
I
fine. It's wild though.
I had a I had a real difficult time, and you could probably, if you go back and listen to our first episodes, well,
Yeah.
maybe our, like, 10th episode or something like
Yeah.
that. I had a real difficult time not saying "we" when
Right.
talking about Paizo.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
I had been at the company for 7 years before that, so it's very much ingrained in my mind that
Yeah.
Paizo equals we. So I'm trying to like go back and forth now, but like especially stuff that I know that I have worked on. Like I didn't
Yeah.
do a ton of work on Tech Revolution, but if we start talking about something like in Starfinder Enhanced when that comes out later this year, I might be like, oh yeah, we did this on this book.
Okay, let's do that. That'll be fun.
Okay,
That's like
sure.
October, though.
I know that so far. Well, I guess we're off until then.
Yeah.
Relaxing.
Yeah.
No.
Well, good. Speaking
Cool.
of this adventure,
Hmm.
you are bringing a very interesting character sidestep.
Yes, the
So,
Yusoki soldier.
yes, but it's a special soldier. What type of soldier is that?
I took the pistol dancer fighting style as my primary fighting style. Since this is a high level one, I got a secondary fighting style too, and I think
Oh,
it's blitz to give me like extra speed.
oh, cool.
Um, I have managed to get up to 50 feet of movement with sidestep per round, and at one point you were like, "Oh yeah, now you're gonna do your trick attack because you move so much." I'm like,
Right,
"No, no,
right.
no,
I know.
I'm
I
not an
was
operative.
thinking, oh,
I
the
just
way
have a
he's
lot
doing
of movement."
pistols and stuff. But
Yeah, I'm doing pistols, which is different. Yeah.
so I was gonna say, unless something else comes up, why don't we talk a little bit about your character next time?
Oh sure,
That sound good?
that sounds good to me. I won't say any more about it now. Then.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was saying. Okay,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no, don't spoil it. We're
Sorry, I wasn't sure if you're going into a second
no,
topic or
no,
not, but
no. We're gonna go. We're at time.
all right,
So,
we're at time.
I'm John.
And I'm Jason, and this has been Digital Divination.